Hello everyone, it has been a long time no see or no hear, and even longer time since I've done a review or in-depth comparison historical on Bath & Body Works candles, as my most recent videos throughout mid and late 2018 were primarily of Homeworks candles. Brief kind of life update, hobby update. I still do burn candles far less frequently than I have in the past, just because life is pretty busy, commutes are long, and I definitely don't burn daily. It's maybe a couple times a week, one candle, two candles here or there. So I've drastically reduced and slowed down my purchasing habits. I probably purchased Bath & Body Works candles maybe once or twice since the December candle day from 2018. And then I purchased a handful of Homeworks candles throughout the spring, but in many ways they were plagued with poor burns, even if they had great scents. So I only purchased maybe 3 or 4 sets of those throughout 2019 so far, and we're in mid-June. So I would say with this, buckle in for what is likely going to be a deep dive along. This could be a 30-minute video, so if you don't like that, check you later. If you do, we're going to kind of play it old school here and really talk about the history of some Bath & Body Works scents, test phases back during the heyday of testing before it even blew up back in like 2012, as well as comparing some new re-releases to the originals, just because a lot of times when a candle comes out that many newbies haven't smelled or they've only heard of or looked at online or seen reviews, there are questions of, is it the same? Is it a different blend? Bath & Body Works is known for sometimes bringing out old blends with different names or candles of the same name that are completely different blends. So since there aren't a ton of us out there that have, the ridiculous old stock collections to truly do a sniff comparison review, I figured I would come back and do a bit of that for you on this. Also, I realized, though my channel originally started in mid-2012, I think it was actually about probably June of 2012, so we're talking about 7 years ago at this point. I actually did not do an original full review on the summer 2012 Boardwalk collection, which you see many of those original candles here on the left, and that Bath & Body Works has released with their 2019 semi-annual sale this month. But at the same time, that collection did first launch in 2012. It was one of the first true big test collections I had the opportunity to purchase. This is back when I lived in New York and Paramus, New Jersey was a test store. They would get all of the tests in, and this is when they used to run tests, months in advance, huge collections. There were whole collections that didn't go wide. Definitely a very different, state of the game then versus now. And also when there were survey coupons for 10 off 30, and the candles would go on sale for 2 for 20. And the test stores would always go 2 for 20 when they would release new test lines, even if the rest of the other stores weren't doing it. So the thing that really got me hooked in doing it was I was getting these candles, I think they were $6.67 a piece when I was purchasing them with the survey coupons during the testing. So couldn't really pass it up, and I'm glad I did, because there really were some great candles along the way that I would have otherwise missed out on had I not purchased them at that really kind of rock bottom price compared to what folks pay nowadays. And so let's talk briefly first about what this original test collection entailed, and then we'll do some deep dives into what I think of some of the scents, since I never reviewed this collection fully, and then we'll talk about some comparing the new blends or the new releases to the old releases and see what the differences are, if any, across the collections. When the collections such as like the Italian collection or the Eucalyptus Mint and collection, or of course lots of fall and spring and summer and winter test scents, destination collections, what else? The Lakeside collection. When those all came out, I did full release deep dives on them. But again, this collection first came out in early 2012, right before I started filming, so I didn't have the full 10-piece collection review on my channel back in 2012. I will say the precursor actually to this, which many people may not realize this, the precursor to the official Boardwalk collection, which I will say right off the bat, the original 2012 Boardwalk collection is probably one of my favorite cohesive collections that Bath & Body Works has ever released. And that's saying something because, typically spring and summer are not as exciting or interesting for me, and I think most, candle enthusiasts would agree that, it's the fall that we love and the winter and the holidays that are great. But this was just a really beautiful, cohesive, thorough collection, cohesive as far as the wax, the scents, the burns for the most part, the labels, the theme and the variety. There was something for everyone, just a really great collection. They were all new scents at the time, which was also certainly exciting, and some of them have turned to really classic scents. So overall, just I really thought it was a great collection. They actually did test a precursor to the Summer Boardwalk collection in 2011, where they released scents like Salted Caramel, which is quite similar to Summer Boardwalk, at least at the time. That'll blow you out of the house. Summer Caramel, Lime Ice, which was a failed test scent, one of the best lime scents to this day that they've ever released. Toasted Almond, which actually leaned a bit more kind of body care and spa-like, but I was obsessed with it and loved it. Of course, the big, unicorn candle, Cotton Candy, which, though they've released cotton candy candles by name, they've never released cotton candy in the original formulation, and I believe that may have been it. It was a small group. It was like the Salted Caramel, Toasted Almond, Lime Ice, Cotton Candy, maybe one or two more, but it was just a handful. But it really showed that they were thinking of that Carnival Boardwalk idea, and a handful of those failed test and didn't make it wide. And then very early in 2012, I'm talking like January of 2012, this collection first hit the test stores. And you can see that by the pour dates on the bottom of some of the candles are as early as like the 20th or the 25th of January of that year. So by February, they were in stores before going wide in probably April or May, like they typically bring their summer scents out. So when the collection was first launched, so I have most of them here, not every single one. I did purchase every single one, I believe, at the time, but one or two I have fully burned through and I didn't have backups on, and so I don't have those to share with you. But there were a total of, 10 scents, which is, again, a fairly large collection. They don't always get that big nowadays. And I kind of like to categorize those into three different categories. So you have the obvious, the foodie category, where you had your Saltwater Taffy, Summer Boardwalk, Root Beer Float, and Ice Cream Shop. Then you have what I refer to as more the kind of ozone, laundry, green, earthy scents, which are your beach grass, your Seashore, and Oceanside. You could also call those dewy scents. And then finally, the kind of resort beach conceptual hot floral blends, which are your Suntan, White Sand, and Beach Cabana, which may be my favorite of the entire collection, and one of my favorite summer candles of all time. So those were the three categories. Those were the 10 scents. What was interesting at the time is, I believe, Beach Grass, Summer Boardwalk, White Sand, Beach Cabana, Oceanside, and Seashore all went wide. Ice Cream Shop may or may not have went wide. It might have failed, can't remember. Saltwater Taffy, I believe that may have fully failed. And then Suntan never came out in the original collection in a full 14 ounce. It only came out in the small single wick that you see here. Later on in semi-annual sales in like 2014 maybe, they did release a handful of these, including Summer Boardwalk, White Sand, Suntan, Ice Cream Shop in full 14 ounces, but they were new pours, still the same scents, but the very first original collection, Suntan, which also another one of my favorites, did not come out in a 3-wick candle. It was later released as Poolside, and then I think it might have even been called Beachside at one point, not to be confused with the actual Beachside candle. There's been some really a lot of mix-ups with names between Suntan and the Beachside candle that came out back in 2010. But so that was what the original release was like. Again, a handful of them did not go wide. I want to say Root Beer Float did not go wide, Suntan did not go wide, and Saltwater Taffy, I think, did not go wide. So that is the overall release of the original ones. What I will say, trying to think of the ways to organize this video, so I wanted to kind of talk through that. I won't do, I guess, a deep dive on every single one of the candles, although I'm going to give a quick sniff on all of them just to give my general thoughts on them, and if there's any, facts that as they've been re-released or something over the years or last time we have seen them. But one thing I definitely do want to do, which hopefully folks will find interesting, the two big things will be comparing Saltwater Taffy, the original, to the new, because I think there are a lot of folks out there who have mentioned, Tina Delicious being one of them, one of our best candle reviewers of present day out there, that Saltwater Taffy has, by name, come out a handful of times in recent years, but it's always been the sort of strawberry picnic, Easter cotton candy strawberry candle, not the original Saltwater Taffy. So, and I believe he said he didn't have the original Saltwater Taffy to compare the new one to. So I'm happy to kind of do a comparison to say, is the new one truly a re-release of the original Saltwater Taffy blend? And then there's been some discussion around white sands, if there's been a change there. I actually just noticed that it is now white sands. It was originally white sand. No big difference there. But as far as the scent, if it's been tweaked at all. But one thing that I am interested in, if you have been a fan or watched my videos over the years, one thing I always like to do is compare original releases or like similar blends, or give a history of if something came out and test failed and then what it came back as. And so I won't do this at this point right now, but for white sand, which of course you see here and here, I'm going to talk about island sand, beachside, and meet me in Tahiti, and what it is. Actually, let's just do that now. We've got that in front of us. We'll save the saltwater taffy and everything else related. This, I think, is interesting for folks who are into, again, just the history of the releases, which, not really sure why we're interested in it. Maybe from a marketing perspective, maybe from the collector's perspective, but I kind of find it interesting how they have gone about doing these. So, in 2010, I believe it was, let's see if there's something on the bottom of the scale. Yeah, in like mid 2010, these two candles were testing. So you've got beachside and island sand. Very similar. I mean, the aesthetic is very similar. Notes close, but not the same. Beachside went wide in 2010. Island sand did not, but then island sand did come out in 2012 as white sands. So that's a bit of the history there. So you can even see the notes on this island sand from the late 2010 was tiare flower, summer jasmine, coconut milk, and neroli petals. Beachside, which is one of my all-time favorites, even though it's kind of a grandma blend, delicate blend of orange blossom, ylang ylang, and white musk. When Beachside came out, it was a trio of what I think are three of the best summer candles they've ever released. It was mid-late summer 2010, and Beachside went wide alongside the original release of Coconut Leaves and Mango Cilantro. Coconut Leaves has been around for a ton of years since then. Beachside has come out a couple of times, sometimes by the name Beachside. I think at one point by actually the name Suntan, in one of the Frosted Glass collections, maybe, something like that. And then Mango Cilantro came back like probably 4 or 5 years ago as Peach Cilantro. Beyond that, hasn't seen the light of day, but three amazing scents that I love. Beachside is just, it's hot, it is powdery, that doesn't choke you out. It's got that mix of the musk, but with that orange blossom. Just very beachy. It's like a hot day and you're in the air conditioning and you just want to feel that warmth of the sun, and that's exactly what Beachside does. It does feel tropical because of the ylang ylang, which is somewhat sensual, somewhat dark, just really, really great. Comparing to Island Sand, which failed out compared to Beachside, which again we all know as white sand now today. And if I try to compare the two, and most folks have smelled, white sand and Beachside. So Beachside certainly has actually, I believe, more florals. And certainly it has that orange blossom. Now, orange blossom compared to Neroli is a citrus, but it's typically a little bit more bitter, I believe, than just a typical kind of soft, round orange blossom. They are quite similar, which I can see why they went up against each other in test. But Island Sand has a bit of, I would say it's more floral because you have the jasmine, which really makes it, I guess, actually I would say kind of more dewy and sweet. So dewy, sweet, still that kind of hot white florals. Coconut milk, a tiny bit of creaminess to it. This one does feel more like a tropical resort, I would say, versus Beachside, which feels a little bit more rustic, I guess you could say. I don't know if that's the orange blossom or what else might be in there besides the ylang ylang and musk. But both really, really great, complementary to each other. If I had to choose a favorite, don't know if I could. Might actually be Beachside, but that could be because I've had white sand so many times over the years. But both really, really nice scents that just don't compare to the tropical florals they release now, the Aloha kiwi passion fruit, and just all of the same similar kind of gardenia stuff that's out there now. Just not my bag. So that's the history of where we got the original white sand. Now let's sniff our old white sand. Oh, actually, one other thing. After it came out in 2012 and then 2014, there was a variation on White Sand, Meet Me in Tahiti, White Sands, and Vanilla Flower that was, it actually was late in 2012 when it first came out, and then I think it came out for a couple of years in a row. And this one was Tahitian Petals, Manoi Blossoms, and Vanilla. Quite similar to, gosh, look at that. It's turning kind of dark. It wasn't quite this dark originally, but the oils, I guess, are turning a bit. If we compare these two, it's certainly, if someone loved White Sand, this was a decent replacement for it. But it's much heavier on that vanilla. It is a creamy, tropical vanilla pod. I actually would compare it very closely to the vanilla that is in, what is it, Vanilla Snowflake in the holiday collections. So it's just a warm, deep vanilla. It's not powdery. It's not, confectionery sweet vanilla. It's a bit more of a, maybe it's even a vanilla, if there's a blossom with vanillas. More dewy as well. Whereas you get the White Sand is a bit more balanced between, they say here actually, they added grapefruit and sandalwood with summer jasmine and coconut milk, which is interesting when we compare. Originally it was tiare, jasmine, coconut milk, neroli petals. They added grapefruit and sandalwood to the notes when it went wide as the original 2012 White Sand. But yeah, definitely like White Sand better because the vanilla is very, very, that vanilla flower is very significant in the Meet Me in Tahiti, but I'd say it's almost like they took the White Sand candle, added the vanilla, and maybe just took away some of the muskiness of the florals that are in White Sand. So that's just one little thing that if folks ever thought they were the same, definitely not the same, but close. So let's compare White Sand of 2012 to White Sands of 2019, which is kind of wild to think it's been this many years that I've been buying these dumb candles. But it is, that does say 2012, established 2012 on here. I do actually enjoy these labels quite a bit on the new collection. They were a simple, clean, pretty aesthetic back in the day, although the font was a little bit basic. This is when it was still Slatkin & Co. formulations. But this does feel like it is a nice evolution of the original candles, or of the original labels, because it's very reminiscent of what the original photos looked like, which I like that as a throwback. And I like that better than just bringing out the exact same photos or the exact same labels. Comparing the notes, boy, so much has changed on the bottom of these candles from the guarantee to certainly the price, $19.50 to $24.50. So what is that, a 25% increase over the years? And the notes, they no longer give you that story. They claim essential oils are in it, though they'd be hard pressed to tell me if there are any essential oils that are actually grapefruit, coconut, or jasmine in here, or if there's something else that's just like a base background essential oil that doesn't actually add to the scent, but they add it so that they can claim marketing-wise that there are essential oils in it. I think it's a lot of BS. But the notes specifically, the grapefruit still listed, coconut milk, jasmine still listed. They just didn't include the fact that there was sandalwood or the cherry flower from the island sand. And let's sniff these. Now, neither of these have been burned, but at the same time, the first candle is 7 years old. So the fact that it's been in storage for 7 years, not burned, it is going to have a different scent than a brand new candle. So, the new one smells cheaper. I do believe that in an age of process improvements and being lean and really trying to cut pennies from products, I believe the formulation likely they must have found a way to use cheaper base materials to save pennies per candle and save hundreds of $1,000s in the span of a year. Because smelling this, one could argue that maybe the fragrance concentrates over the years in an old candle that has not yet been burned, but it's just so much stronger than the new White Sands. As far as the actual scent itself goes, I don't see any difference. It's just like kind of watered down. I don't think they added anything or removed anything necessarily. And I still like it. And maybe when it's burning, it'll still be totally acceptable with a throw. But it's kind of like, if you've ever had a fragrance that you love, I think most people know nowadays that parfum or, eau de parfum, eau de toilette, eau de cologne, those are not male, female. They're just simply concentrations of fragrance oil in the scent, or like the actual liquid that you're applying to your body. And so many good quality perfume houses will make, an eau de parfum or an eau de cologne or an eau de parfum and an eau de toilette, which is just simply the cologne or the toilette is going to be less percentage of fragrance oils, so it's going to be less intense of a scent. That's kind of what I get here. It's almost like the White Sand on the left from 2012 has a higher concentration of fragrance oils, making it more like a parfum intensity. And here you've got kind of the cologne or eau de toilette intensity. So that would make a lot of sense. Couple less drops, literally, because it doesn't take much to fragrance these. A drop or two less across each candle saves them money and is probably good enough for most people that certainly I may not even be able to tell a significant difference if these weren't side by side. But I do believe, as far as the scent itself goes, it's the same scent. They didn't add or remove or tweak, but either quality or quantity, I think, has shifted over that. Either way, I'm so happy to see it come back, because while some of these have come back over the years, this one really hasn't had an appearance for quite some time. I think maybe 2014 when it came back in SAS, but at that point we're still talking, that's 5 years in the past. So really, really nice one when it comes to, White Sand, the Suntan, the Beach Cabana, just really great scents to balance each other out for the summer. So that is, we got through it. I know we're going deep here, but that is our deep dive in White Sand. Now let's talk through just a quick review of the ones from the original collection, some of which are coming back, some of which are not. As you see, I purchased 5 candles here. I did not purchase Beach Cabana. I think I may actually go back and grab it, just because I didn't purchase it because it has come out in recent years and isn't difficult to find. But I do like the cohesion of the labels here with the postage stamp. So I may go back and grab another one of those, because I certainly will burn it over the next couple of years. But if we're looking at, so I'll hold off on the ones that have matches here, and we'll talk through those in a bit. But I want to talk through the ones that I do not have here in front of us, or did not come out. So that would be this 4-pack here, which is Seashore, Root Beer Float, Ice Cream Shop, and Oceanside. So Ice Cream Shop is available, but supposedly an online exclusive. Root Beer Float did not come out, but it came out last summer, and when I compared, not side by side because I didn't purchase it, but in store, it smelled the same to me as this candle. So just note that if you were a fan then and liked it, or were curious if it was the original. I believe it was. And then Oceanside and Seashore. Oceanside, this was poured in late 2012 for 2013 spring, like the tropicals they bring out in January. So this was really literally the same year, late in the year, that the Oceanside candle came out for the first time in the Summer Boardwalk collection. I purchased it, I burned it. Didn't love it. For many years, this was kind of a staple for Bath & Body Works, but I don't believe it's come out in recent seasons. And then Seashore did not come back in this collection, but I was really a fan of this one, and it did not come back in this name, but I believe it has been repackaged as Renew and Refresh, number 2 or number 3, something like that. But really a full-on repackage that is, I believe, in White Barn Core now. Has seen a couple different releases over the years, but still fairly easy to get our hands on. And also just a really nice dewy kind of laundry scent almost. So, but I am going to give like the 30-second description on each of these, just for those who are interested in my opinion on it. So Root Beer Float, the notes on this one, again, this failed out in the original test of Summer Boardwalk. A treat that always delights, sweet root beer poured over pure vanilla ice cream with a touch of nutmeg. And this one, again, was poured the 19th day of 2012. Oh, that's so funny. That's actually the birthday of our dog Beatrice Dijon. So this candle is literally as old as she is to the day. So yeah, this was early 2012 for the test. It does smell like a root beer float, I suppose, but it leans very, and this is, I think, the same as what folks said to the root beer float candle last summer. Root beer does have a lot of kind of wintergreen in it to give it that flavor, and this, to me, they didn't find the right balance of creaminess or sparkling cola aspect to balance out the wintergreen flavor, because in many ways, I think if someone smelled this blind, they would probably call it a mint candle. I mean, it would be a stretch, but you could call it like a I mean, it's kind of Pepto-Bismol, honestly. Now, Pepto-Bismol, again, has sort of that is a wintergreen flavor, that pink Pepto. This is like a creamy Pepto-Bismol, really more than anything. The vanilla doesn't give you vanilla, it's just creamy, so it just makes the mint more creamy versus the wintergreen root beer root that you're supposed to have with a vanilla base. And there's no effervescence whatsoever, or really whipped cream, and certainly no nutmeg, so I burned it. It was kind of a messy burn, but it did burn evenly. You know, the couple of times I did burn it back when it was first released. But no one would walk in your house and say, oh man, it smells like a root beer float in here. It would be kind of minty, kind of weird. And again, to me, put that side by side with Pepto-Bismol. That's really what you got. So not a fan of that one. Then you've got Oceanside. Very, very ozone heavy. I actually did a deep dive on this, comparing it to a bunch of other candles that came out around the same time, like your Paris Daydream, your Flirt. They all were kind of variations of Oceanside. So check out a video from sometime back in 2013, I believe, if you want to hear more of that. But the notes on this, and this one was poured also, again, like I said, late 2012. Sun ripened citrus, juicy melon, refreshing ocean air, brings you to a perfect day on the shore, blah, blah, blah. You know, smelling it is fresh, it's nice, it's different. It definitely does not have the florals that you get in some of these, like the hot florals or the powdery or the musk. It's very much there's a sharpness with that citrus. The ozone is there. It leans towards this very much, probably more than any of them, leans towards a laundry scent for me. Beach Cabana could be that way. Seashore could be that way, but it's more dewy. This is not dewy or green. It also leans to kind of like, I hate to say, you know, more of cologne-y. Actually, I'm going to take that back, because cologne is not necessarily men's, and everyone in the fragrance community says perfume or cologne-y. Doesn't mean male, female, doesn't mean a specific note. So let's actually cut that shit right now. So when we think of cologne, this just leans more towards like the men's fragrances that Bath & Body Works releases that are supposed to be butch and masculine. So a man actually will feel, you know, with his hyper fragile masculinity, that he'll be able to wear something because it's, you know, in a label without pretty lettering on it, and is called noir or blanc or dark or, you know, butch dude, don't worry, you're not gay kind of deal, which just get the fuck out of here with that. But anyway, Oceanside leans in that direction of kind of like, you know, your Axe, or, you know, something that came out in like an Old Spice deodorant. Just very sharp, interesting, but it just leans a little bit kind of like a made for men shower gel or body fragrance. Not even necessarily anything high end, just something that's supposed to be like, you know, this isn't floral, this isn't femme, is what that reads to me. So, boy, Fragrance Reviews 2019. It's a different world than 2012, isn't it? Ice Cream Shop. So this one came out. People are, you know, popping all over the place about this one because they love the idea of it, which sure, the idea of it is nice. But mix of vanilla, strawberry, chocolate, you know, a sundae in a candle. As you've seen with Hot Fudge Sundae, you're going to get one or two notes. There's no way to get at least with Bath & Body Works, the complexities, the intricate balance of all of those ingredients together. And oftentimes it's going to be very light or just muddy. This one is really no exception to that. So it says creamy vanilla, rich toffee, sweet almond blossom. Let's keep that in mind. They're not saying almonds, they're saying almond blossom. So they're immediately going conceptual with this, which the label and the name don't show that. And then a cherry on top. So honestly, I don't remember what this one smells like. I'm assuming it's the same that came out in 2014 with a different label, actually, at SAS. And then the same as the one that's online right now, but I'm not going to purchase to find out. Very simple. It's nice, actually, but not really. It's certainly a layering candle. This, I actually feel like it does remind me of something that's like a holiday classic. Something that's a vanilla, like not exactly creamy nutmeg, but in that sort of creamy nutmeg cupcake realm. Or like actually some of the chai, like vanilla chais or the white pumpkin that came out. Yeah, this reminds me a bit of white pumpkin that came out just this past fall of 2018. It's milky. It does have a bit of nuttiness, you know, from the almond blossom, or, you know, some sort of like a warm nutmeg spice almost, I would say. it's not spiced like a chai. It's just as if you had, for me, this is if you order a chai latte and you know they just put milk and then like the chai concentrate in there. If they just don't put enough, like you get a teaspoon instead of, 1.5 ounces of it. That's kind of what this is. Like a thick, heavy vitamin D whole milk with a little bit of a nutty, spicy background to it. Certainly not strawberry, not vanilla-ish, not toffee. I wouldn't call out toffee. So could you say it smells like an ice cream shop versus an ice cream sundae? Maybe, but it's just very blah. There's nothing really exciting about that. So not a fan of that one. And then finally, Seashore. I do like this one though. So Seashore, and look at the oils and how this was a white candle like the rest of them. And whatever oils are in here are turning deep yellow. The notes on this one, savor the feeling of the coast, water lotus, citrus, and saltwater in the air. Now, I don't have the notes in front of me. You can look them up yourself if you'd like for Renew and Refresh. I would assume they added and subtracted a couple of things from the list, but still the same blend. This is the epitome of a dewy beach scent. Now, sometimes you've got the Verbena waters, the dockside, the lakesides, almost the Boathouse Row that are green water scents, but not beachy necessarily, more like a lake or some other body of water without like the ocean, the saltwater aspect. This is very much dewy and oceanic, like saltwater as what you're feeling. So the bit of the floral from that water lotus, some citrus. I don't pick it out. I wouldn't consider this a citrus candle. I would call it a very soft, dewy, not quite powdery, but a soft, dewy floral with a good amount of, it could be jasmine or something that brings that kind of dewiness to it. Water lotus, I don't know if that's considered a sort of sweet, soft, dewy candle. Not much in the white, hot tropical florals like tiare and things, I don't think. The florals are not my area of expertise. But yeah, this one also leans, perhaps the most of all of them, the most like what could be, sort of a fabric softener or Febreze kind of scent. But I still do think it's really nice. Again, green, dewy, beachy floral. Fresh without being overly bright. It's soft and kind of calming. It's more of a blanket, like a warm, like a cotton blanket. And it's not super far off from like your fresh cotton type of blends that are out there. Your laundry is usually fresh cotton, but that's that. I like it a lot. Again, has been out for many years off and on as Renew and Refresh, which again, even Renew and Refresh sounds like a Febreze scent. So that's where we come from with that. So that is the overview on those. And so what have we got left here? So we've got a talk about Beach Cabana, Saltwater Taffy, Summer Boardwalk, and Beach Grass, actually in Suntan. So again, this video, for all 10 of you that are gonna watch it, it is a long one. So I hope you are enjoying it. I'm not gonna take the time to cut it down into multiple videos because I'm not gonna get that many views probably anyhow. So let's talk about what is probably my favorite, the label, the complexity of the blend. I just love this candle. If I could only choose one candle out of the entire collection to come back year after year, as much as I love Suntan, it would definitely be Beach Cabana. The notes in this one: relax in the cool shade with sweet jasmine, orange blossom, and hint of musk. Now, all of these candles have citrus or citrus blossoms, a musk or a sandalwood, jasmine or some floral, maybe some oceanic things. What is great about this collection is it really is, again, like so many of the same notes, but blended together to be very, very different. Whereas the collections nowadays are so middle of the road, they all just kind of sit there limply and kind of are very similar to each other, whereas these were so different and evoke such different feelings and moods while still being reminiscent of each other. So Beach Cabana. Oh yeah, it's got the summer vibe of Suntan. It has some of the floral beachiness of your white sand. It's got a bit of the powder of beachside. It's just really like a combination of the three of them in such a nice way. I think sometimes they call it fluffy white towels now or something like that. But this one really is, I think the name is great. Again, I think when you're thinking of a beach cabana, you're on the beach and maybe you're not right at the shore. You're under your umbrella. There's a little bit of floral. There's maybe a little bit of that suntan put in there. It really is just pieces of each of those put all together into one candle altogether. This could be just straight up the beach. As far as jasmine, is there dewiness to it? Not as, it doesn't read as dewy as, like, say, a Seashore does. It's a little bit more of a, it certainly is a powder. I think that's the musk that's bringing that, and maybe a bit of the orange blossom. The orange blossom brightens it, softens it, sweetens it just a tiny bit alongside with the sweet jasmine. But it's not overly heavy on the floral, and that musk just brings a powder without it being too, like, you know, the one that makes you go like this when you're getting sprayed at Macy's. It's not that kind of deal. It's not overly old lady powder. It's just enough of that it brings, this is the one that brings that kind of resort spa, dare I say, elegance to the blend, where it just feels like a step above, just a little bit more, not necessarily mature, but a little bit more sophisticated than the more straightforward white sand, Seashore, suntan, that sort of thing. It's just, it is my favorite in the collection by far. All right, so what else do we have here? We've got summer boardwalk, saltwater taffy, and beach grass. Oh, and suntan. All right, well, let's, again, keep on going. Summer boardwalk. So this first appeared in 2012. It's been around, I'd say, most, if not all years since then. It is your killer, blow you out of the house, as Little Balladeer would say back in the day, choke you in the corner scent. And this is caramel glazed popcorn, warm taffy apples, and salted sweet cream. And boy, it is the perfect blend. I think it is oft imitated, certainly through vendor wax. This is something where, like I said, in the ice cream shop, you can't really mix so many different things and actually smell them all. This you can. It's got your caramel corn, maybe kettle corn, a little bit of that. You've got that hot popped corn scent in there. But you also have a little hint of a sweet apple, like a sweet red apple in there, and then kind of mix all together with the, you know, the sweet cream of the vanilla. Salted caramel that came out the year before this was quite similar to this, but was heavier on, it was really it was like the creamy, salty, caramel glazed popcorn, maybe with a little bit of nut or like peanut or almond in there. They kind of took that out. Salted caramel came out for a few years, but it was like a really watered down, cheapened version of the original from 2010. But they kind of reformulated that, I believe, into this, adding in the apples. I think really it's not necessarily caramel glazed popcorn and warm taffy apples. It is a caramel toffee sweetness that is partnered with apple, with popcorn, and then a base of, like, not quite vanilla, but again, that sweet cream, and then salt added to all of it. Everyone knows what this smells like. It is really a quintessential summer foodie scent. It is very foodie. So this is, you know, you're not gonna be burning Beach Cabana and Summer Boardwalk. It's a very different vibe, very different mood. This is bright, fun, cheery, kids afternoon, whereas Beach Cabana is more mature. White Sand is just kind of standard, straightforward, beachy. Then you've got the calmer, kind of maybe cooler seashores and beach grasses and things like that. Really, really nice. Again, it's come back many times. It's always been pretty much the same. But I am curious now, smelling an original 2012 with the 2019 release, similar to White Sand, I'm curious if this Summer Boardwalk is going to smell at all more, you know, watered down or thinner than the original. Quickly comparing notes, they really kept this, one of the few times they've kept the same here: caramel glazed popcorn, warm taffy, apples, and salty sweet cream. So they kept note for note the same same fragrances listed there. These are closer, I would say, than White Sands, I think. If anything, I would say this could be due to age, but the Summer Boardwalk on the left, the original, feels a little bit rounder, like a little bit creamier. The newer one, I'd say the apple might be a tiny bit more prominent, but it's not necessarily in a strong, like, fall sort of autumnal apple. Almost like a tiny bit watery. So yeah, it's a little bit maybe kind of watered down, similar to the new White Sands. Could just be also like the base formulation that they use now is of base fragrance oils or even just wax blend could be different from 7 years ago. But as far as like overall, when we're comparing the two, like them both, I bet you couldn't tell much of a difference. Still totally acceptable for, you know, comparing to what it once was to what it is. And I will likely burn this one because at this point, this one's so old, the original. There's just no need to burn it when I have this fresh new one. If I were to ever sell the collection, someone's going to pay for the old one, more so probably than the new one. All right, and Suntan. So again, this one was kind of a surprise hit. Again, it only came out in the 4 ounce in the original collection. The notes on that were like the feeling of the bright sun. Okay, the bright sun and warm sand, orange flower, yuzu, and coconut husk. Notes real similar to that island sand candle from that failed test. But as everyone knows, this smells like suntan lotion, like not sunscreen, but like tanning lotion, like the oil you put on to crisp up. Definitely that coconut, not just the coconut husk, but coconut. Yuzu, I don't know if people realize, is it's an Asian citrus fruit, often used, I think, probably in Japanese cooking, but very much also in Korean cooking. I mean, yuzu tea, pretty much a lemony scent is the closest thing you'd probably call it to, a little bit of an orange. And yeah, it's just a very, and you got orange flower, so it's really citrus on coconut, but there's some sort of musk or something in here that just makes it super powdery, but not choking, where it smells like someone smells it and it's like, okay, it smells like suntan or sunscreen or suntan lotion, whatever. The notes now, citrus, orange blossoms, coconut husk. So because we have to be basic and, you know, don't want people to be scared of what yuzu is, or God forbid have to Google to see what yuzu is, they just call it sun-kissed citrus now because we're living in a 2019 America. It smells probably the closest out of all of them to the same. This is actually one where the new one smells stronger than the old one. So that maybe does go to show that there is something with the formulations. It's not just the age of the candles that are, you know, causing this difference when I'm sniffing. But yeah, this one is a killer, super, super strong. And again, I just love that they took the original label, made some tweaks to it, certainly a little different, but still a nice throwback to what the original one was from the original folks who designed the collection. So huge fan of that one, and we'll continue to burn and buy that one, hopefully for years. Okay, just comparing White Sands and Suntan. I mean, there's a lot of similarities in these two candles, and I think folks have said that before. These two are probably the most similar. If we compare with Beach Cabana, Beach Cabana's calmer, cooler, little less musky, powdery, whereas you got your Suntan, kicks you right in the face. White Sand really is like calm down the intense powder, let's call it the coconut husk, in the Suntan. Probably honestly the orange blossom, because that's where the powder comes from. Take down the orange blossom of Suntan, add in some of the sweet jasmine, and that's White Sand. I think that's really the primary difference between the two. We're talking orange blossom versus jasmine, but the base fragrances between the two of them, coconut milk, coconut husk, sun-kissed citrus yuzu, sparkling grapefruit, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Same base fragrance, but different enough just from the addition of the jasmine versus the orange blossom that makes them quite, well, not quite different, but again, different enough. All right, last one before we get into Saltwater Taffy, which we'll finalize with. Beach Grass. So this one has not appeared for quite some time. I don't believe it's ever come out in a different name. It might have come out once or twice after 2012, but it's been quite a while, from what I believe, since we've seen Beach Grass come out. Really nice wax. I do enjoy the colorful wax they've used this time. Different aesthetic than the all-white wax, but it definitely works with the collection for this year. This one, Morning Dew, Rain-Soaked Greens, White Freesia, and that's that. So freesia, that's something we're not seeing in the other scents. And they're saying like, do. This is wet, wet, wet. It's kind of funny that you've got Seashore that you would think would sound wetter, but this is one that has dew, greens, and freesia. Oh boy, I hadn't sniffed this one in the store when I purchased it. Oh, that is nice. It feels kind of springy almost to me, which, you know, dew and rain-soaked greens could lean towards spring. This doesn't have to be beach, although certainly that freesia makes it brings the powderiness of like a white beach to mind. This could be something rain. You know, it's not, I almost wonder the eucalyptus mint and rain, certainly not that, but it feels maybe if you took eucalyptus mint and added beach grass, that might be similar to the rain note that is in that candle. If anyone wants to compare, that would be interesting. What I want to compare, because I think Seashore and beach grass, at least in my mind, were very similar to one another. Yeah, these two, the same way that you've got Suntan and White Sands that are kind of the sister scents. If they needed to kill one, that, you know, they'd take one of those two, and then if they had to kill one of these, they'd take one of these two, because these two actually are quite similar. Now, if we compare notes, you're talking citrus, saltwater, lotus, with dew, greens, and freesia. They're not giving us much in beach grass beyond the freesia as far as what the scents are. I'd say the Seashore is a rounder, softer, more not sweet, but more cloying fragrance, which I'm not sure what that comes from. Maybe the lotus. And the beach grass it's a bit crisper, fresher. It is fresher. It does lean again more towards like almost a spring scent or like a spring grass, not green like like fresh cut grass, but a soft, sweet, kind of like fresh bamboo-y grass, which of course comes from the freesia. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some jasmine in here, but the freesia is just a little bit whiter and fresher than the strength that comes from jasmine. So yeah, I don't know, not a ton to say about this. I guess I can see why it hasn't come back, because it's not necessarily as unique or individual as some of the other ones. I'm actually a bit surprised that this did come back, since nowadays they do cater a lot to folks who want like the basic scents that sound great on paper that don't necessarily show up that way. But I'm happy it's back. It's nice. I probably only need the one, but again, it's nice. It's just this is more of a layering scent. This one actually reminds me of, like, this could be a Yankee Candle scent, which isn't a reed. It's just somewhat subtle, straightforward, inoffensive, nice. Doesn't have anything where someone would say, oh, it's too floral, oh, it's too musky, oh, it's too citrus, it's too bright, it's too hot. It's just, I'd say, like a standard beachy crowd pleaser. So it's nice. All right. For many folks, star of the show, probably for a couple of reasons. One being that, yes, it is new to most people, even if they were around for the original collection, because it didn't really go wide in any significant form. Anytime there's a candy scent, now people just go popping over it because, you know, people love their sweets. And it's pink, and it has balloons, and it's a pretty label, and the marketing just goes wild. But let's dig into it. So I didn't bring out as many folks, like I said, Teeny Delicious and many others, Bronze Blogger. They've mentioned that, you know, there have been saltwater taffy candles that are just the cotton candy, marshmallow, strawberry, picnic, whatever, you know, bland strawberry scent from the past couple of years. So I didn't compare this new one to those, even though I have a couple of them, just because they did that, and I just wanted to see, is it the original? So first, look at the original notes. The good thing is I have one here that was burned, and then this one here wasn't burned, because sometimes that makes a difference when you're sniffing. And it says here, and again, this was poured on the 26th day of 2012, so it shows you the age on that. Classic Seaside Sweet, light, fluffy vanilla cream, whipped with fresh strawberries and cherries. I'm sure it should say the same on the original old one, yes. And the new one, chewy vanilla cream, fresh berries, juicy cherry. So close enough. I mean, you're talking, you know, whether it's fluffy vanilla whipped cream or chewy vanilla cream. So vanilla and berries. And cherries. Okay, so yeah, it really is. They're taking the straight up, the strawberries and cherries note the same. Doesn't mean anything, but it's not a bad sign. So let me first smell the old one. Super light, not very candied. It's one of those candles that it definitely developed a bit of an off fragrance, though the wax stayed one color. It just became kind of dirty smelling, a cream base with no real discernible fruity or berry note in that one. In this one, I even try to rub the top of it to release some of the oils since it's so old. I mean, borderline unfragranced, honestly. Borderline unfragranced. Again, that's why I burned it probably all of 1 or 2 times. It just, the burn wasn't great. As you can see, it was a really kind of messy burn, so it's one that wasn't going to be a great burner. I would say like you do get the sort of that vanilla creaminess. It is very creamy without being candy sweet. Kind of the whipped, like pulled taffy as you're like, you know, doing this thing to it. I could see that, but I also can see why it didn't go wide, because it's really missing something. Like I'm not getting fruitiness, berryness, or, you know, if you bite into taffy, it's a strong, like it makes your salivary glands work. It's not going to be sour, but it's a strong, you know, flavor, fruity flavor that comes out of it. And this just really doesn't really have it. And the new one really does. Very different for me. Now, it could be, I will say, I agree with everyone who says this is not the cotton candy marshmallow strawberry picnic candles, etc. I do believe this is different from those. I am not convinced, however, that it is a direct repackage of the original. Because when I smell this one, I instantly, and this was in store and now, and I actually have one, I bought 2 because I like it enough and it's unique enough and good for layering. And I wanted to see the throw while I was recording. So great burn. That's something that I'm honestly not used to seeing from recent Homeworks candles from the past couple of months. Really solid burn on that. That's been lit for an hour, maybe. Will say not getting a huge throw, but I could be nose blind from sniffing so many things up close for the past half an hour. But when I smell this one, this really is spot on. Now, it could be a berries and cream. It wouldn't necessarily have to be called saltwater taffy. You wouldn't smell it and say that's what it is if you weren't looking at a label that said it. But I do get certainly that creaminess, that sort of the chewiness. I give them props for that it does feel like that kind of, you know how it's so aerated and there's like a creamy chewiness and just like a little bit of like that oil on the outside of it when you're biting into a piece of taffy. It really hits that with the berry sweetness of, you know, kind of a Skittle or Now and Later, that kind of slightly tangy berry. And when I compare it to this burned one, I get, again, almost unscented in that. When I compare it to this unburned one, trying to rub the top of it, there's no way that there's the brightness. They don't seem like the same scent to me. Now, could it be argued that, you know, a candle that's 7 years old, whether it's unburned or burned, whatever the oil blend is, could lose some potency or until it's lit or whatever, isn't going to smell as strong? Sure. But yet, smell that Beach Cabana, smell that white sand, smell that summer boardwalk, all these scents that are from 2012, and you smell spot on exactly what they are, to the point where, again, they smell sometimes stronger than the newer ones. So I actually, for me, the jury is out whether it's the same because these are so unscented. However, I will say, just based on my scent memory alone, I do remember this always seeming pretty unscented, to where I wasn't getting the berry even back then. And when I sniffed this one, the new one in store today, I was like, oh, that smells like saltwater taffy like it's supposed to. So actually, if I was gonna, not that I'm some, you know, judge and jury here, I think it's actually a new blend. Entirely. I think that the reason why the first one didn't go wide is because it was a bit of a failure, that it just didn't work. And they finally reformulated a true saltwater, you know, a berry saltwater taffy fragrance. And I think this is it. And as long as it throws, which TBD, I think it's a really nice blend for those who want kind of a sweet confectionery scent without going full on bubblegum. So that is the massive review. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't know if or when I'll be back under Touch the Fire Twice. You can always check me out, Fabrizio and I, over at The Gentleman Next Door on YouTube and, of course, Instagram, where we tend to be a bit more active these days than on our YouTube channel, just because, boy, guys, editing takes a long time to do. But if you have any questions, hit me up. Hope you enjoyed kind of this deep dive, historical, whatever this was of the Summer Boardwalk collection. Hope everyone who's watched over the years is doing well. Please do hit me up in the comments below. I'd love to hear from folks who I haven't heard from for a long time. If you're still around and watching, you know, my semi-annual candle reviews that I throw up here. And until next time, guys, take care.